In this video, I'm going to have some JavaScript that is going to write the code that will make a SVG scalar vector graphics 5-pointed star. Okay, so I have basic HTML. So here is where the page is available if you want to download it. So I set up a basic HTML page. I just went to refresh my memory, I went to the W3 schools and found their SVG for a polygon. That's what I'm going to use is the polygon. And the polygon has an attribute of a set of points. So this polygon here, let me run this. This top polygon is a triangle, which is a set of 3 XY points. So that is what is in their demo. So here is an XY, another XY, another XY. And then they use the style. I'm going to do these things individually, but they put them all in the style. They set a fill of lime, a stroke of purple, and then a stroke width of 1. So that was their example. I set up the SVG, but I made it empty. So I'm going to create a polygon and then create the points for the polygon and then append that child, add that polygon to the SVG. Then I made in lines 20 to 22. And so I gave that SVG an ID so that I could refer to it in code. Okay. So I am using a createElementNS, NS namespace. So this is sort of a slightly expanded version of create element. And I'm creating the polygon, the same polygon you saw up in the W3 schools example. And this sort of approach is based on something I found on Stack Overflow. They were adding the SVG and its contents. I'm only adding the contents. Okay, so I am going to create a star. I'm going to think of the star as these alternating points between 2 circles, an inner circle and an outer circle. So there will be 10 points altogether. 5 of them will be on the outer circle and the other 5 will be on the inner circle. They'll be alternating. So that's what I wanted to show you at this point. So and those circles are concentric. So there will be a center, an X center, a horizontal center of the circles, a vertical center of the circles. There'll be an inner radius and an outer radius. And then we will need a place to to start the points, and okay. So that's what I'm defining here. So I created the element NS of the type polygon. Its attribute is just these points, but in order to get those points, I'm going to use that geometry I just showed. So I wanted a center X, a center Y, an outer radius, an inner radius. And so I declared variables for all of those. I have an array of points empty at this stage. And I am going to make each point X and Y. So I just started off at 0. I'm not going to use those values 0, but I just assigned it some value to start off with. And then I start on my for loop. Then I'm going to start at 0 and go up to not including 10. So I will have 10 points incrementing by 1. Okay. I need an angle. And my angles will be in radians. And I am starting this part of it. The second part over here involves I. So when I start, I is 0. And so I'm starting off at -pi on 2. And then I increase the angle so that by the time I get to up to, not including, let's say I went all the way up to and including 10, then I would be 2 pi. I'd be all the way around the circle. Well, I stop 1 shy of that because I already have that point. Okay, so I'm starting. Let me bring this circle up. And so a normal coordinate system, normal meaning not a web coordinate system, usually has X and Y, and the angles would proceed around in a counterclockwise direction. But in the web, X horizontal is still to the right, but positive is down in web. And so then as you're working your way in angles, you are going clockwise. And here at all X and no Y, that's where 0 is in terms of angles. So this angle working sort of going backwards, going counterclockwise, whereas my distance I'm doing web, so I will be going around clockwise. And so if here is my 0 angle, I'm starting off at minus 90 degrees, or if I'm in radians, minus pi on 2. So that is why I'm starting here minus pi on 2 and then making my way around the circle clockwise. And then I ask, I divide the counter I by 2 and ask whether, and take the remainder, take the modulus and ask whether that's 0 or not. So is it an even or an odd number? And if it is an even number, I'm working with the outer radius. If it's an odd number, I'm working with the inner radius. And I'm multiplying the radius by using the math library, the cosine of the angle. And again, the angle has to be in radians because the cosine and the sine work in radians. And I also add the center X. So I have the radius times the cosine of the angle plus the center X for my X, and the radius times the sine of the angle plus my center Y for the Y. And I'm switching back and forth, as we said, between the outer radius and the inner radius because of the way we are creating the star. And when I have, now in the W3 schools example, there are points where nice integers. And so in my sort of first round, I was trying to make those nice integers as well. So I had a parse int in there. And then I took it, I looked and see if I could take it out, and it still worked, and it did. So then I took it out. So they didn't need to be integers. And then on my points array, I am pushing the X and pushing the Y. Okay, so then this is 51 here is the end of that loop over my 10 points. I am setting the points attribute of my polygon to make it the points array that I had, and using the join method to turn that into a string of the XY points separated by commas. So I just have a big set of commas, and that makes it look like this, except I have additional commas, but you see that it, I ran the program and it worked. So I could have commas separated. This has commas and spaces, but all commas worked as well. Okay. So that made the set of points. I set the fill property. If I don't set the fill property, it probably default to black. I set the stroke attribute to purple. I'm just modeling myself on what the W3 schools example had. And then I set the stroke width attribute. They had a 1, I made it 3, so I made it a little bit wider. And then finally, I go to the my SVG, then I prepared ahead of time, and I added that polygon. So again, if I open with my live server, here was their triangle, their example, and now here is my star with the lime green fill, the purple stroke, and you can see that my stroke width is thicker because since I had a 3 to their 1. This down here, I was just making the circles that you saw here, that inner and outer circle. So that's that commented out code was making circles that were associated with the star, just so then I was sort of can talk about the geometry and how I made this star. Now I want to talk about a sort of a special case, and that is that a lot of the stars that you will see, say like in a flag or something like that, have a special case where this line here, these two lines are horizontal. So if you want that to be horizontal, if you wanted it to be horizontal, that's right now it's not horizontal, but let's say if horizontal, then that would mean that this point and this point should have the same y, the same vertical amount. And so this is, I'm going to sort of write it out in degrees, and I'm starting at 90. There were all around the circle, there are 360 degrees, and I'm breaking that up into tenths. So 360, of course, divided by 10 is 36. And so I want, this point has an angle of minus 90 plus 36. And this angle is minus 90 plus twice that. So that'll be 72. So, oops. Okay. I got a little crazy there. 72. So then what is the y is so this would be the y, what do I want to call it? Y1 is the inner radius times a sine of, what is that, minus 54 degrees. And y2 is our outer times sine, and that is minus 18. And then if I set them equal, y1 equal to y2, that would mean that they had the same vertical. That would mean that line was horizontal. And so if I solve this, I would get our inner to our outer is what, sine of 18 over sine of 54. I got rid of the minus signs, which I can do. And if I do that, I already did that on this calculator. Calculator's in degree mode, so I used 18 and 54. And if I do that division, it's this 0.381966. And so I have that number here. as a comment. So I'm going to uncomment that and comment this one. So now if I, instead of just choosing an outer and inner radius sort of arbitrarily, I'm making the inner radius the specific ratio to the outer one. And let me save and open with the, so now that choice is what makes this line. When I started here at minus 90 or minus pi on 2, and that choice of inner to outer radius made this horizontal. So that was a special case of the star. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show in this video. I started with an empty SVG. I used createElementNS to make a polygon. I'm working with this idea of these two, walking around these two concentric circles, alternating between a point on the outer one and a point on the inner one, 5 points on the outer one, 5 points on the inner one, and working through this geometry, pushing the points into an array, and then setting that attribute to this element I created, and setting some other attributes, and then finally appending the child. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you. Thanks much for your attention.